Start. We can start. We can start now, Rasna ji.
We'll start.
Yes, yes.
Uh, uh, Hello, everyone. This is Rachna Lodaya. I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties which we have been facing for quite some time. Uh, let uh, just right. Yeah. Am I audible? No?
Yes, yes.
Yes, you're audible.
Please go ahead.
You can go ahead.
Uh, Now we have all gathered together right now for a very interesting and a very profound talk on a very, very lesser known king from Orissa, Kapilendra Gajapati. Before that, I would like to introduce Voice of India, the platform which has been used today. It was founded in 1984 by late Sri Sitaram Goyal and late Sri Ram Swari, and it's a publishing house based in New Delhi, India. VOI, that is Voice of India Publications, we specialize in Hindu nationalist books, and we aim at providing an ideological defense to the Hindu society and culture. We have many eminent researchers and historians like K.S. Lal, Abhas Chatterjee, Arun Shauriji, David Frawley, Kundar Elst, N.S. Rajaram, Shrikant Telegiri, Ishwar Saran, and many young budding researchers also joining our publishing house. Now, the Voice of India Academy, it's a platform for academic discussion and study and comprises of volunteers from different parts of the country, one of them being me, who primarily draw the inspiration from Voice of India publications. And today's book, which we are going to discuss, Kapilendra Gajapati, by Mr. Nihar Ranjan Nanda, it comes under the ambit of one of the themes of VOI. So let's get ourselves introduced to Mr. Nihar Ranjan Nanda, the author of the book which is being discussed today, Gajapati Kapilendra Deva. Mr. Nanda is a software engineer and is working in an MNC. He is a history enthusiast and has written on various platforms. He is immensely interested in medieval Indian history in general and Odisha in particular. I would like to welcome Mr. Nanda to our VOI platform. And I would also like to thank you for bringing light on a very, very lesser known king who needs to be told to everyone and who needs to be shown light on everyone. Being a historian and a professor of history myself, I am actually ashamed that I had never heard about him before. I had heard about the two kingdoms which he has fought against, two empires which he had fought against, but I had never heard about him. And I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mr. Nanda, that you brought to light such an interesting, such a brave and such a courageous military commander and an able Hindu leader in the very difficult medieval times of India. So thank you, Mr. Nanda. Mr. Nanda, I would like to request you to take us through to your book and your experiences while writing, while researching this book. It's a very well-researched book, I must say. So the platform is all yours, Mr. Nanda.
Thank you, Rachna ji. It's actually a pleasure to be part of Voice of India team and giving a talk in Voice of India publication and all this, because I wanted to tell this, that like most of Indians of my age, I'm 34 now. So we all are brought up in a different kind of environment where we read books on history specifically, which was dominated by the left-leaning intellectuals. Few years back, I think 5 to 7 years back, I was introduced to Voice of India publication and Sitaram Goel and Ram Sarup, these books, and it made a tremendous change in my mindset, the way I approached history, and I started thinking alternatively, like the way normally we know things, and my opinion changed completely. I'll say books like Hindu Temples, what happened to them. It was first book I read from Sitaram Goelji, and it had a tremendous impact, I must say. And thank you for the introduction. And for this book, I'll say it is a journey of like 4 to 5 years. It's not like I wrote that book in 1 year, but before that, I had a long research, you can say, and also my interaction with various different people who had knowledge about the topic, and in a long 3 4 years of effort, which finally I published it via Super publication last year. So um, so I'll start by introducing Odisha, basically, because Odisha's history, medieval history, um, and how I started, why I started writing this book. First thing is like in Indian history, uh, about Odisha, we generally read about 2 3 lines regarding like Kalinga Empire, mostly Asoka's Kalinga War, and probably a few lines regarding Konark Temple and Jagannath Temple. That's it. We uh, heard a lot from history books. That's it. So I always thought like there's something else is also there. For example, when we think of temples, temples like Bhubaneswar's temple, multiple, I think 400 to 500 old temples are there in Bhubaneswar city itself. It's called City of Temples. And Puri, as you know, the great Jagannath temple, and the Konark temple, the Lingaraj temple, and many more temples are there. So that is the point where I started thinking, how come in the nearby states like Bengal or Bihar, we do not find old temples at all, but in Odisha, we have so many temples. That is the first point where I started thinking alternatively. As I said, Hindu temples, what happened to them by Sitaram Goelji's. That was a turning point. So there I started thinking. From there, at that point of time, I started trying to research about Odisha's history, specifically the medieval history. And to my surprise, I found, even though I'm an Odia and I have read in Odia medium school, and I have read history books, little bit of kings of Odisha, but still I did not know many details about many Odia kings. So that was the first time when I 5 to 7 years back, as I said, it came to my mind. And then in my I started researching about various kings from the year uh, 1200 CE onwards, when the Turco Afghan invaders invaded India and reached at the border of Odisha around by 1206. At that point of time, I wanted to know what exactly happened in Odisha and how it approach to that invasion, who were very invaders who were very different from the normal Hindu Indian invaders at that point of time. So from there, my curiosity grew and I started observing. So at that point of time, what I found was two uh, great dynasties ruled Odisha at that point of time. One is Eastern Ganga dynasty and another is Suryavanshi Gajapati dynasty. Gajapati Kapilendra Deva is from the Suryavanshi Gajapati dynasty. So I'll come to him. But before that, I want to say, like, from year 1200 to 1568, this 370 years, there was a continuous struggle between the kings of Odisha and the nearby Islamic sultanates like Bengal, Jaunpur, even Delhi, Malwa, Bahmani, and also the Hindu kingdoms like Reddy kingdoms and also Vijayanagar Empire. It was a continuous struggle period. And in that period, many great kings ruled Odisha. And as I said, the Eastern Ganga dynasty, which ruled from the year 1200. And another thing you will observe that many people say that Eastern India fell into the hands of the Turkic invaders immediately. But that is actually not true. Today, if you consider Odisha, entire Odisha, around 3% of modern day West Bengal, like district connecting to Bangladesh, and also the river Damodar river, which connects with the Hooghly river. South of that region was entirely in the on the rule of the Odia kings, and till Godavari. So the boundaries were changing during invasions and all, but entire that period, around 1,000 kilometer of length at that time, was under a independent Hindu rule. So for that reason, if you see the uh, demography today, even Odisha has like 94% Hindu. Most people don't realize that, and even the nearby regions where the Odia kings ruled at that point of time as majority Hindus. Adjoining areas of like Bengal from Odisha, those are majority Hindus because of that reason. That is a major reason. It's not the only reason, but that's the major reason. So then there was a scenario here. Kingdom of Odisha stayed independent, a staunch Hindu state throughout that period. Actually, many scholars have written about that, but somehow it has not got the attention from the national level accommodation or national authors due to some reason. For example, if you see, when temples around India were being broken, at that time the great Konark temple was being built. If you see, it was probably the largest, tallest temple at that time. Arguably, there's some doubts though, but at that time it was the largest temple. It was being built in Odisha, and that was built actually, as per some scholars, that was built because of the success of Odisha's king Narasimha Deva I against the Delhi Sultanate's king, who Narasimha I actually invaded Bengal and captured its provincial capital Lucknow, and to commemorate that, he actually built the Konark temple. Even though there's no direct proof of that, but some scholars believe that this is what happened. So things like that was happening at that point of time, but most people don't know. Anyway, so I'm just setting up the stage here. So by the year 1435, the Eastern Ganga dynasty, the Bhanudeva, the king of the Eastern Ganga dynasty, he became weak in the sense, from the north, the Bengal Sultanate, the Jaunpur Sultanate. The Jaunpur is a place in UP where one breakaway faction of the Delhi Sultanate's governor, he created his own kingdom. And then the Malwa, similar with Jaunpur, they all created different kingdoms, and they started attacking Odisha and the Hindu kingdom of Odisha in the corner of eastern coast of India. It was suffering defeats and was paying tributes at times. Something like that happened regularly. So at this juncture, Gajapati Kapilendra Deva, who actually was not a son or related to the king anyway. He was a commander or minister of the Eastern Ganga king, and he at that time when the kingdom was facing a lot of issues because of some invasions, as I said, and the ministers of that time, what they did, they made Kapilendra Deva the king instead of replacing Bhanudeva IV, because Bhanudeva was getting beaten up by the various kings throughout his entire career actually. So with that, the Kapilendra Deva became the king. He became the king on 1435. The coronation date was believed to be 29th of June, 1435. And he became the king in Bhuvaneshwar. At that time, Cuttack, the city of Cuttack on the bank of Mahanadi, that was the capital of Odishan kingdom. But he became the king. He was coronated at Bhuvaneshwar at that time, which is currently the capital of Odisha. At that time, he was coronated. Anyway, so at that time, Odisha's kingdom was partially captured by the Reddy kingdom, which was being held by the Vijayanagara emperor in the south. In the north, the Bengal Sultanate has captured part of Odishan kingdom. In the west, the Malwa king had invaded and captured part of Odishan kingdom, and some of the tributary chiefs were paying him tribute. So at the time when Kapilendra Deva became the king, his kingdom was around 5 to 6 districts surrounding the capital Cuttack. In fact, some of the nearby tributary chiefs had declared independence. So he was not in a very good position when he started. Around, if you see, around 50 to 60,000 square kilometer of land he had in his hand when he became the king. And with that, we started a new epoch in Odisha's history. You can say its history changed completely, and because you see, from where he started till the peak of his career, it is a completely militaristic pursuit which he followed in the entire 35 years of his career, because he did so because his kingdom was surrounded by hostile powers all around, and everyone were thinking of getting a chunk of his territory in one way or the other. So it was a situation where Kapilendra Deva was coronated, and immediately he started fighting back. So the first king who invaded Odisha at that time, Odishan kingdom at that time, was the Sultan of Bengal. Bengal Sultan and Odisha's king both were perpetual enemies. Means in the entire 370 years, you'll read fighting between these two kingdoms every now and then. Means sometimes Bengal was having an upper hand, sometimes Odisha was having some upper hand, but means the fighting was perpetual. Sometimes someone was getting tribute, sometimes the other one was getting tribute from the enemy. That it was happening. So it was part of that invasion where the Sultan of Bengal invaded around 1436-37. At that time, invaded deep into Odisha. So at this point of time, Kapilendra Deva sent his commander named Gopinath Mahapatra. Gopinath Mahapatra was a able commander who fought back and defeated the Sultan of Bengal and invaded into Bengal. So, and it is written that Kapilendra Deva around that time went to Ganga. Ganga was like Hooghly River near Kolkata. There he went there. Bhagirathi Ganga, that Ganga is known as Bhagirathi Ganga, which is a religiously important place for Odia and Bengali Hindus. And Kapilendra went there and took a bath and just informed the world that he has arrived. So this way, the first invasion was pushed back, and Kapilendra secured the northern frontier from the Bengal Sultanate. Then in the south, the Reddy kingdoms based out of Rajahmundry of modern day, and they had also captured till the Simachalam. Simachalam was actually part of Odishan kingdom at that time, but they had captured that Simachalam temple, that region. So Kapilendra Deva slowly by 1443 defeated the Reddy king, was being supported by the Vijayanagar emperor, and he was also pushed back, and Rajahmundry was captured by that time. So in the north and south, both the ends were secured by Kapilendra by that time. And then there are other enemies also, like other Turco-Afghan enemies also, like as I said, like the Jaunpur Sultanate, the Malwa Sultanate, the Bahmani Sultanate. All these were also eager to get a chunk of Odishan territory. So the first thing Kapilendra did he fought against the Malwa Sultan. The Malwa Sultan actually had invaded into Odisha and captured part of it, and was taking tribute from some of the Gajat or tributary chiefs at that time. Kapilendra sent his army under Gopinath Mahapatra, who crushed some of the hilly terrains in the western Odishan frontier and pushed back the Malwa army. In fact, in one of his inscription, he talks about marching till Mandu, or Mandvi, probably we call that, which was the capital of Malwa, which is in current modern day Madhya Pradesh, western Madhya Pradesh. But there is a little bit of doubt exactly whether he marched there or not, because we have few inscriptions also, multiple inscriptions talking about that, but no, nothing is concrete, nothing is direct. So we are not sure whether he marched, but most likely he pushed back the Malwan army from the Odishan territory, part of Chhattisgarh also. Part of Chhattisgarh was also incorporated into the kingdom of Odisha at that time. But around 1443, 45, at that time, it was captured. So this was the first part of Kapilendra's career. So as I said, if you I shall go on talking about Kapilendra Deva, you will hear only things about warfare mostly. It is because the situation was like that in northern India. Continuous warfare was going on, because it was what I say, like for survival of the fittest. So I must add a few things also here. At that time, the Odishan society, currently you read about Odisha, you'll read about poverty, hunger, and all those things. But at that time, the situation was different. It was like a fighting race, basically. There's a people called Khandayatas who are still present in Odisha today, who are fierce warriors. So this is a caste who are Kshatriyas of Odisha, who are fierce warriors, like most of army which consisted of these Khandayatas. Even though other, like as I said, Gopinath Mahapatra, he was actually a Brahmin, but Kapilendra assigned the task to him because he had the talent and skill to execute them. So, but anyway, so Odishan if you see even okay, some of the scholars say that some of the surnames like Patra, you might have heard Sambit Patra, and this Patra title is actually a military title in the sense that Patra was the minister of Gajapati army. Patra, Mahapatra, Balavantarai, Samanta Singhara, Uttara Kabata. These are many surnames. Nayak. These surnames were given by the kings. These were actually military titles given to people for their means whatever job they did in the army. So these titles have become surnames, and you'll find most ODIs actually have these surnames. They actually don't realize that, but this is what happened. So to the prevailing political and military atmosphere that was going on in the northern India, in overall India actually. So to cater that, to fight back what Kapilendra Deva did, he actually started creating a militaristic state, complete military state at that time. And another thing also he did, what he did was Mahaprabhu Jagannath. If you are aware of Odisha, then you know Odia people have wherever they go, only probably the only thing they talk about is Lord Jagannath. Lord Jagannath is their everything. So this is not a today's thing. This is 500, 800 years, or even more than that. But during Kapilendra Deva's time, what he did was he used this religious strength of Odias to counter the religious notion that the Islamic kingdoms had. To counter that, he used this in a sense that he created that this empire is actually Lord Jagannath's empire. This is not a king's empire. Lord Jagannath's empire. Whoever he wishes, he will be the king, and whoever thinks of harming Lord Jagannath is actually must be dealt with severely. So this was a unspoken, rule in Odishan kingdom at that time. So if you read some of the literature of 100 years after that, you'll read everywhere Lord Jagannath is mentioned in the case of war and everything. So there are several things which Kapilendra Deva did and created an atmosphere where almost everywhere, even not everyone, but most people were military ready, and whenever it was required, they used to send them to war and all. It is said that he had an army of 7 lakh people, even though it is not a direct recruit, but some of the like what do you say, the means at the time of war only some of them were recruited. So anyway, 7 lakh troops overall he had. Anyway, so we'll proceed further. So after capturing this Rajahmundry, and Kapilendra came in contact with the Bahmani Sultanate. So the Bahmani Sultanate, Bahmani and Vijayanagar, both you might be knowing, and they were perpetual enemies. They're fighting with each other every now and then. They were almost a similar time period, both the empires. And at that time, Bahmani Sultanate was known as Kalavarga in Odisha. So Kapilendra Deva at the time around 1448, what was happening in Telangana was there's a commander of the Bahmani army named Sanjar Khan. That Sanjar Khan was a tyrant. What he was doing, he was torturing Hindus at the past time, like even taking Hindus as slaves and selling them in Central Asia and all other places. He was doing that regularly. So this was informed to Kapilendra, and some of the local chiefs and local kings who were suffering from Sanjar Khan's attack, they asked for the help of Kapilendra. And Kapilendra Deva sent an army around 1448 in a place in Telangana called Thammamet. At that place, both the armies fought and Sanjar Khan was led. And if you know, like the Rajakars of 1940s, 50s, the way they were treating in Telangana, something similar was happening at that time. And Kapilendra's army killed that Sanjar Khan, and then Telangana, part of Telangana was freed, and Hindus took a sigh of relief after that period. That is an interesting period. Most people don't know that, but something like that happened. In fact, when Gajapati army invaded, the Sultan actually told Sanjar Khan that you should not fight with the possessor of elephant. So possessor of elephant is Gajapati actually. So I forgot to tell this. Gajapati Odisha's kings are generally known as Gajapati. So Gajapati is actually a title. It's not a dynasty per se. The Eastern Ganga dynasty also used this title Gajapati. The Suryavanshi Gajapatis also used the title Gajapati, and later kings like Bhoi Gajapati, Khorda, and modern today also the Puri king is also has the title Gajapati. So basically, why they're called Gajapati? It is because Gaja means elephant, and Odisha kings had a huge number of elephants. In fact, in the Bahamani Sultan had once told that they had Odisha's king had 2 lakh elephants, 2 lakhs. But it looks like an exaggeration. But it is for sure that they had thousands of elephants, like tens of thousands of elephants for sure. If you see the geography of Odisha also, you will find several elephant sanctuaries throughout Odisha and bordering places bordering Odisha. So, in fact, in the Kautilya's Arthashastra, it is also mentioned that the elephants of Kalinga are the best. So, similar things are there. So, that is a tradition which started around 1235, something somewhere around that, where the kings of Odisha were called Gajapatis. And this dynasty of Kapilendra is called Suryavanshi Gajapati, basically because in every inscription, every place, Kapilendra started using the word Gajapati, uh, talking about himself in all his epithets. So that's why the dynasty was called Suryavanshi Gajapati. Suryavanshi was his, what do you call, Suryavanshi clan. He was from Suryavanshi clan, claimed to be Suryavanshi. So, yeah. So, and this way, as I said, by 1448, the Khammamet region of Telangana was captured. After that, Kapilendra again fought with the Vijayanagar kings, because Vijayanagar and Odisha, these two kingdoms were fighting actually for the last 100 years. So, during the Eastern Ganga king, also they had fought. So the powerful Vijayanagar Emperor Devarai too actually died during that time, and Kapilendra got an opportunity to fight against them, and he captured the important fort of Kondavidu. Kondavidu is a fort near Krishna River in Andhra Pradesh, which near Vijayawada, a few kilometers from Vijayawada. So he captured that fort. That fort actually was fort of the kings of Andhra, which was captured earlier by Vijayanagar. So forts were changing hands, and Kapilendra first time, because that was a very important fort. That fort was in its strategic position was such that invasion towards south, invasion towards west can be launched from that, and it was the impenetrable fort of that period. So Kapilendra captured that, and with the capture of that, he became means more powerful. And then again, around 1458, something happened. At that time, the in the Telangana region, what happened? The Hindu kings of Telangana were ruling from uh, Warangal. Warangal was the capital of late Kakatiyas, but later on it fell into the hands of the Tughlaqs, and again some Hindu rulers, Nayak rulers, powerful rulers, by defeating them, had captured that. But there's some relationship between Bahmanis and these rulers of Telangana. Among them was a ruler named Linga, Madaya. He before few years before that, Warangal was forcefully captured by the Bahmanis because the Hindu chiefs of Warangal actually held Vijayanagar in the fight with the Bahmanis. So that was captured forcefully by the Bahmanis. So there's a hostile relationship between the Hindus of Telangana and the Bahmanis. So around 1458, what happened? Uh, the Sultan ordered to fight these remaining Hindu chiefs. So this Madalinga, as I said, he actually fought with them bravely, but he had a small army. Unable to cope, he fled to a place called Devarakunda, a fort in Telangana called Devarakunda. In that Devarakunda, he sent a messenger to Kapilendra to help. So Kapilendra sent an army, and this Sultan's army was besieging that fort, and Kapilendra's army arrived from the back, and they completely routed Sultan's army. You see, if you read some of the authors, Islamic Persian authors of that period, they have also even written about that, because it's very rarely they praise any Hindu king defeating the Muslim king Sultan. Like they have, for example, Ferista, he has written Ferista or Tawbata, I don't remember exactly, but he writes, the forces of Islam were routed. So something like that they have written. Means they have made it a religious war kind of thing. And that Bahmani Sultan is said to be forces of Islam, and this thing because it became part of Kapilendra Deva's empire. Okay, so along with that, then Kapilendra also again marched. I must bring into notice another thing here. Kapilendra had a son named Hambira. Hambira was a very, at that time, probably he was the most decorated general in all of India, probably. In this, as I said, this Battle of Khammamed, Battle of Devarkonda, Battle of Warangal will proceed. All these were fought by Hambira, and he fought against Bahmani, Vijayanagar, Reddy, and fought everywhere. He was successful, defeated almost everyone. So in Warangal, again, people might have heard the famous minister Muhammad Gawan. Muhammad Gawan of Bahmani Sultanate. At that time, he was new. He was actually under task to protect Warangal. So around 1460, Kapilendra's son Hambira and his nephew named Raghudeva Narendra invaded Warangal and captured it on February 2nd, 1460. At that year, Warangal was captured after a long time. Warangal, the Kakatiya capital, was again into the hands of independent Hindu empire. And after that, the fort of Mahur. Mahur Fort is a fort in modern day Maharashtra, Nanded district, I guess, bordering Telangana. So Mahur was also captured. In one of the Telugu poems, it is mentioned that Mahur Fort was captured. Mahur was probably also part of Bahmani kingdom, or probably Malwa had a partial rule over that. So for a brief period, it was captured once again. Now I forgot to mention Muhammad Gawan was assigned the task of to protect Warangal, but Warangal was also captured, and Muhammad Gawan was actually captured. Though the name is not directly mentioned, but we read that Muhammad Gawan was assigned a task to protect the Warangal fort, and within few years, we read that Warangal was captured, and inscription there are two inscriptions in Warangal fort in east and western side of the fort, and there it is mentioned that the commander was captured and pardoned. That's what is mentioned. So most like inferences that Muhammad Gawan was captured there and he was pardoned by Gajapati army during that period. So with that, entire almost Telangana came into the hands of Kapilendra, and then Kapilendra thought of capturing the capital of the Bahamanis. So Bahmani capital was Bidar. Bidar is modern day district of Karnataka, bordering Telangana and Maharashtra. And Kapilendra's army Kapilendra sent his army. At that time, the Sultan, I think Humayun Shah was the Sultan, who died, and his 8-year-old son Nizam Shah became the Sultan. So Kapilendra thought it is an opportune moment. And seeing that and they reached almost at the border of Bidar. They are 10 kilometers away from the fort, almost in the border. So at that time, the Muslim scholars write that there are 40,000 soldiers the Sultan gathered, and
I think he has lost the
You
connection.
have lost the connection.
Uh-huh.
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
GG, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yes, so the Gajapati army reached at the border of Bidar, and yeah, as I said, like they gathered 40,000 forces, and they say like 160 horsemen were sent to deal with the to send a message to the army that some exaggerated statement has been mentioned by the Persian sources. We say like the Sultan wanted to invade Odisha, but as the king has come here, he doesn't want to take the difficulty of traveling such a long distance. He will defeat the Odishan king and something blah blah blah. They have mentioned, and they say after seeing 160 horsemen coming to them, the Gajapati army retreated, in fear. Mentioned. And in this process, some of them died, and the Gajapati army had to pay tribute. In one place, they are mentioned they had to pay tribute, but in other places, they are not mentioned anything like that. So, this is a very tricky scenario because some of the Islamic sources sometimes do exaggerate this, because what happened initially, I want to bring one information of, I mean, my observation in this period here, as a student of history. So what I observe is, like, if you see Hindu sources before Maratha period and Hindu Muslim sources of that period, same period, you find a contrasting difference. What is the difference? Hindu sources will write one or two lines of thing about a certain military victory or military achievement in an inscription or some literary source. If you read, usually those are poetic versions, and they somehow don't talk directly, some indirect way they mention. But in case of Islamic sources, like as I said, Ferista, he mentions exact source, like there are 50,000 personnel of Bahmani army, 1,000 in the Gajapati army, 160% to deal with this, and this amount of tribute were paid, something like that. So the way they have read, the modern scholars, when initially in the British period, when they started analyzing the sources to find the history, they usually gave importance to the Muslim sources because they sounded more realistic. For example, as I said, they mention specifics, whereas Hindu sources rarely mention specific. For example, as I will come, the Gajapati army, from the Gajapati side, we read Kapilendra uses an epithet called Kalavargeshwara. Kalavargeshwara denotes Lord of Kalavarga. Kalavarga was known as Bahmani kingdom. In Odisha, it was known as Kalavarga. So he mentions this. This is the thing he mentions during in his inscription. Nothing else. His army has reached in the border of the capital of one of the most powerful kingdom of that time, but there is no direct mention of what he achieved and anything. Only statement Kalavargeswara. So there is a gap. So some scholars, earlier scholars, used to believe that the Muslim sources, like some scholars believe, but a critical examination will tell us like 160 with 1,000 sources, the way they are mentioned, is not believed at all, because this 10,000 sources are already captured. Most of the Bahmani territory, entire Telangana has been captured. So this is obviously an exaggeration, the way they have mentioned. Anyway, so what was happening was,
Hello. Hello, Mr. Nanda.
Yeah, I think
We lost connection again, I guess.
he lost connection. Maybe we can,
Mr. Nanda, can you hear us?
let us wait for him to join back,
Yeah.
and then we can go for
yes, I can hear you.
audience
Can you hear me?
audience participation. We can hear you. We can.
I think there's some network issue. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Nanda. I would just like to request you to wind up your talk so that we have
Yeah.
some time for questions and
Yeah,
queries.
sure. Yeah.
Everybody is curious to know a lot, but I would
Yeah,
want
yeah.
everyone to read the book.
Yes, 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 sure. So yeah, so as I said, so the come from the Gajapati side, there is for the when the scholars mention that 160 soldiers repulse the 10,000 army. So some scholars actually bring another theory that during that time in the north, the Jaunpur Sultan actually invaded to help uh, Sultan of Bahmani from the attack of Kapilendra. Because of that, Kapilendra returned back, and which is being exaggerated in the this thing. But in my opinion, that is not the case. The Jaunpur invasion did happen. Mostly there was 40,000 army of Bahmanis, and Kapilendra's army was small, so they just retreated back, which is being exaggerated. But anyway, Ferista again mentions that during this time, the Malwa king, actually Malwa Sultan, invaded Bahmani capital, and the Gajapati army again restarted the depredation of the Bahmani territory. That's the trick he says, but he doesn't mention what happens after that. But we have one Telugu source, Telugu poem, which talk about Bidar, the capital city fort of Bahmanis, being the part of Gajapati Empire. Other than that, there's a few years back, not few years, around 40, 50 years back, there's a uh, manuscript was found. That manuscript was probably written later, but it was copied from an earlier text. That manuscript mentions Purushottama Deva, the son of Gajapati Kapilendra Deva, to have captured the impenetrable fort of Bidar. So there are Hindu sources, but even there are later period sources, and also the Telugu source is a contemporary source actually. So we should consider both the things, and it looks like during and also there's a source from Malwa also where the um, Malwa author mentions to save the Bahmani king from the tyranny of Kapilendra Deva, means the Gajapati army. The Malwa forces actually invaded Bahmani. So there is some trick which the Islamic scholars of that period was trying to hide. Anyway, Bidar probably stayed under Gajapati rule for a brief period, and who were later repulsed because of the fighting between Hambira and Purushottama, the civil war between the Gajapati army, which actually destroyed most of southern part was captured by the enemies. So this was the fighting of the Bahmani. Also in the Vijayanagar and Gajapati army were also fighting. They're actually till the Gajapati army invaded Rameshwaram, till Rameshwaram, and captured part of major chunk of Rameshwaram, Madurai, the river Vaigai, the river Vaigai river, where it originates. From that point till Rameshwaram, north of that area was captured, and Kapilendra's grandson was assigned the task of governorship of Tamil region. It stayed for few years, I think 2 to 8 years. Some scholars define, in my opinion, around 6 to 8 years it stayed, but it was not never a full control of the region. But anyway, so and also the Kurnool region of Andhra, it was captured, and also there is a point mentioned in one of the inscription that Vijayanagar capital was also captured. Gajapati inscription mentioned that, but there is some doubt regarding that, but that's what it mentioned. And and in the north, till the till the modern day Jharkhand, north of Jharkhand, part of the Gajapati Empire. So if you see from, as I mentioned, 50 to 60 thousand square kilometer to around 15 lakh square kilometers region at one point of time, around 1464, Gajapati Empire was this huge. Kapilendra's, but it lost some territory in the south, basically during the end of his tenure, when both of his sons, Purushottam Deva and Hambira, they were fought with each other. So it lost some territory, but probably it was probably till the time of Marathas, it was probably the largest Hindu empire at that time for small amount of time, but it was the largest in some sense. And yeah, so and then Kapilendra died around he died fighting also. I mean, he had come to south to suppress some rebellion, probably by his elder son Hambira, and around 1467 February, he died in the banks of Krishna. And so with that, a great emperor, great king, and a patronizer of Odia culture, Odia tradition, Hindu culture, Jagannath culture, he died, and Odisha again fell into chaos due to the fight of his civil war between his sons. And yeah, I think that's it. I think from my side.
That was a very, very fascinating presentation of a king who is not at all known to anyone. Uh, from his empire at its peak, starting from Jharkhand going up to Rameshwaram, such a huge empire, and we do not know a single sentence about him in our history textbooks, which is actually a very big shame even today. Uh, I would like to throw the talk open for discussions and questions, but I would like to request everyone, please ask pointed questions because we are running short of time, and let's not try to build up, scenarios or
Yeah.
background. So we'll start with the discussions if you're ready, Mr. Nanda.
Yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Sanji?
Uh,
Yeah.
Mr. Ms. Soumya Ranjan Panda, please unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you.
Soumya Ranjan Panda.
Can I go ahead?
Yes,
Hello.
yes, yes. Please go ahead.
Am
Yeah,
I audible?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I can hear.
Okay. First of all, great talk. When I want to assure everyone that as I've already read the book, book contains so much and so much on the Gajapati. I mean, because previously when we used to read about him, it's written fractions. From big books, you'll find small fractions on him, or maybe some epigraphy or that kind of thing. But this book contains everything. So again, my humble urge to everyone, please do read it. A bit about the Muslim sources which he has already elaborated. Yes, the problem is many of the earlier historians, contemporary British historians and others, native historians also, they have given too much importance to books like Farishta. Then Burani Masjid, I think he was talking about when he was talking about the problem is same Burani Masjid talked about how Kapilendra Deva marched with 2 lakh elephants, and to which every goddamn historian has said that this is exaggeration. When that point can be exaggeration, why can't the other parts where there is no concrete evidence or tangible evidence can be discarded? That is one of my point. Other one, I mean, he has almost completed everything. One more thing I want to highlight here is Gajapati Kapilendra Deva's greatest achievement is not that length and breadth of his kingdom. It was that I mean, just think of a scenario when every other uh, Hindu
Mr.
kingdom
Panda.
or native kingdom in yeah. No?
I think some issue was there. Yeah, go ahead.
We
Go ahead.
lost connection in the middle. Yeah.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so The thing is, just think of a kingdom which was getting attacked from every possible front. Bengal Sultanate, Jaunpur, then Malwa, Bahamani Sultanate, and Vijayanagar. And the biggest strength of him was he came from grassroots level. He was not a prince or king's son. So when he came from grassroots level, from a military training, he knew what was lacking, and the multifold fortification of army he did. The one he has already discussed. That was one of the takeaway points should be for any history enthusiast or anyone. Also, my request is from now onwards, I think we should consider Gajapati Kapilendra Deva not just a ODI king or something, because his contribution to Indian geopolitics is immense and should be considered a national level hero or national level king, especially considering that the time period. That's all
Yes,
from my
yes,
side. Great talking here. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, so I just want to add 1 2 point. So is actually the Muslim sources and Hindu sources vary in this way, as I mentioned earlier, but they complement each other. If you compare them, then most of the times you will come to know who is saying what. But sometimes because there's a religious angle involved in here, so sometimes they hide or exaggerate things. For one example, I'll give. What happens in Hindu, whenever Hindu kings invade some territory, capture it, what they do, they inscribe about of their victory in the temples, in the temple walls, or in the copper plates they give to the temples. But what happens after so many years of rules of this Islamic empires? What they have done, as some of the old temples have been destroyed, so you'll never find those inscription and copper plates and all those things. So what happens is when a literary source of the native place mentions about capture of some territory, then uh, modern scholars, what they do is they say it is an exaggeration. Why? Because there is no source. For example, if I'll say Kapilendra captured uh, Warangal, as there is a inscription in Warangal, fortunately, somehow it is there. Scholars are accepting. But there's an inscription of Kapilendra where he says the fort of Telangana was captured. There's an inscription which calls. So that inscription is somewhere in Simachalam, I think. Simachalam in Vizag. So my point is, if that Warangal inscription would not have been there in that Warangal fort, most scholars would have rejected the theory that Kapilendra captured Warangal. I'm sure about that. Only fortunately we have that inscription, that's why they're accepting. But here, if you see other inscription or other literary sources, there are mentions. So maybe for a brief period he captured, but he captured. So we have to consider both the things, and then that we should not be very judgmental about who is saying what. So that's my opinion. Yeah.
One important thing about copper plate inscriptions, since we are talking about that, many times
Mhm.
copper plate inscriptions and these land grants, which we call, they change hands.
Yeah.
Now, suppose if a
Yes.
family or a villager has been given something by the king or whoever the ruling person is, and if they shift or migrate to some other place, they would take that copper grand plate with them.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
when it is found in that new place, the local historians would not know about what the copper plate grant is being talking. So that also creates a lot
Yes.
of confusion.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
With that,
Yes.
All
I think
Also
Dr.
the
Kiran
village's
Patekar
name
also
and
had a
all.
question.
Also the
Pardon?
name and village's name and the grant names change. That's a major issue with.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Dr. Kiran Patekar, I think you had a
Ah,
question. You had raised your hand.
yes, yes. Yeah. We are running short of time. So I've actually 2 points, 2 questions, Niharji. One is that,
Yes.
we know that you have mentioned about that you know, in 1437, the raid of Shamsuddin that you have mentioned. But apart from that, Odisha has been more or less immune from Islamic invasions up till Akbar. Akbar,
Yes,
conquered it in 1592 or something like that. Much after
yes,
Kapilendra.
yes, yes,
So the other two areas is like Assam, which was protected by Brahmaputra, and maybe
yes.
parts of southern India which were protected by Vindhyas. So, what do you think gave immunity to Odisha for such a long time? That is one question. And just if you have any
Yes. So
idea.
yeah, so actually in my book, actually I have mentioned about that. If I'll say geography was a factor. We should not ignore that. I mean, people become a bit jingoistic and say this, but geography was certainly was a factor, because if you see the eastern part is certainly the sea, Bay of Bengal, but the southwestern part and northwestern part of Odisha is a hilly and jungle terrain, which is a difficult region. But having said that, some of the other regions also had the same benefits. So Odisha had a geographical benefit in that sense. But other than that, I have added, there are few things like uh, you read about many really talk about the horses from the Central Asian origin, which the Central Asian these Islamic invaders invaded. They had an advantage in the plains of the UP, Bihar, Bengal plain. Okay, but here in Odisha, as I mentioned, the elephant factor. People don't realize that, and most British and even Islamic scholars mock in one way that these elephants are certainly helpful at some times, but at most of the times they were not. But in Odisha, that elephant culture, that elephantry was so huge, and so it is very good in defending, because there are some choke points. If you can defend that using the elephants, you will be successful. That's another main reason. And the third, and probably the most important and most ignored, that is, if you see Odisha, you will find huge amount of iron ore in the Odishan region of Jharkhand and Odisha border place called there's a place called just 1 minute. I think God. Yeah. So there's a place called Keunjhar. You'll find high quality iron ores there. So in my opinion, that was a major reason. This iron ore production was a major reason behind the success of Odisha this thing. And there's another point, as I mentioned, there is a spiritual or religious connotation associated with the Islamic invaders invasion. Okay, so as I mentioned about Lord Jagannath, Odishan king actually utilized that beautifully. Why I say so? Because they made Lord Jagannath actually the king of Odisha. If you before kings before Kapilendra Deva, they mentioned that um, this is the land of Jagannath. If you go to Odisha even today, people will tell you this is the land of Jagannath. So certainly there's a political angle to that, but using that they unite people, and people when you united with a religious zeal, there's a different kind of strength people have, in my opinion. Sometimes it goes negative also. Means I agree with that point, but for a long fight of 370 years, that actually gives you strength. Because if you read some of the literature of that period, people you usually believe that Lord Jagannath can do miracles. And when actually in 1568, when Odisha actually finally failed, the person who destroyed Jagannath, not temple, the images of Jagannath, it is believed that he died of heart attack because he destroyed Lord Jagannath. Even after destroying the temple, I mean, not temple, images of Lord Jagannath, people thought that as he destroyed, he died because of that. So there's a strong faith, strong this kind of thing was there. So it is also one of the factors. And there's another factor I also want to add here, is that sea trade. So the horses were a problem for Indians because the Indian breed horses were not that strong and very few, far and few. So Odisha had a long coastline. The Kalingan Sadhavas that we know, they had a trade relationship with the Western Asian Central and Western Asian states. So regularly horse trade was happening. Odias were sending elephants and getting horses back. So that was also a factor, one of the factors. And certainly Odisha was lucky to get some of the great kings and great commanders of that period who held it, and from a different caste, creed, everyone was joining, as I mentioned earlier, was joining the army. So it was a entirely a team effort kind of thing, and a bit of luck and bit of using all the resources in a manner to support your strength. So I'll say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a
You
very
answered my
fascinating team
second
effort
question.
with the blessings of Jagannath.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was my
Yes.
second question, which you
We have
answered.
one more question. We have one more question from a gentleman or a lady, Del. So please unmute yourself. Uh, so please unmute yourself.
Is it my turn to ask the question?
Yes. You can go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Actually, Nihar, thanks for doing a wonderful presentation. Kapilendra Deva is definitely one of the least celebrated regent of not only Odisha but of India. I just have one information to add to the question put by one gentleman, why Odisha was kind of immune from many of the invasions that happened elsewhere. Actually, if you look at the southern part of Odisha, you will find that the plains of Andhra Pradesh is separated from Odisha by the steep Eastern Ghats mountain range. And there is one particular anthropologist from Odisha who has written that Koraput, that the southernmost district of Odisha, that used to be a source of war-grade elephants. The elephants were powerful and they were small in size. So that smallness in size contributed towards agility in the battlefield. Quickly, they could change the directions. So because of that particular feature of the elephant from Odisha, Koraput used to be one outpost of Chola Empire to procure the war-grade elephants. So this has been written by one particular anthropologist, Mr. Cornel Das. So this could probably add to the discussion that we are right now having, why Odisha kind of remained immune from many of the foreign invasions or within Indian other states invasion. Thank you. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Certainly. That's an amazing point. Thank you, sir.
I don't think there are any more questions because I don't see any raised hands. So I actually would like to conclude giving my remarks because I have been reading the book for quite some time now. And three things which caught my immediate attention was what you call as the temple attack theory. Some
Yes.
historians, or I would call them distortians, because they love to distort our history. So those distortians have actually claimed that Kapilendra Dev had attacked and destroyed some of the temples. Of course, we do not have any uh, evidence to prove that because it is not true. Now, I found a very, very profound similarity in this statement with the temple attack theory. And this similarity can be seen in how Aurangzeb is claimed to have repaired and built newer temples just to justify his his iconoclastic activities and everybody's for that matter. Another thing which I noticed was we have too many epigraphical evidences which have too many confusing statements, terms, and eulogies. We do not have, I
Yes.
don't blame them, but that creates confusion for us as historians, as history researchers. So we need to be very, very careful in squeezing out facts from interpolations, and which is actually a very, very difficult task. So because I know this, I would like to uh, do a, I cannot actually, you cannot actually see because my camera is not working. But Mr. Nanda, shata naman to you, because the kind of
Yeah.
research you have done with epigraphical sources, it's amazing, it's mind blowing, it's spellbounding. I wish the civil war
Thank you.
between the two sons of Kapilendra Dev had not happened, and this
Yes.
illustrious dynasty would have continued ruling not only Kalinga but a major part of India and hopefully thrown out the Islamic invaders. We could only wish that all the Hindu kings could have come together, foregoing their egos and imperialistic policies. They could have come together and we wouldn't have faced such a brutal Islamic imperialism. With this concluding remarks, thank you so much, Mr. Nihar Ranjan Nanda. Thank you so much for your time, not only for this presentation, but the time you have given to bring to light such a wonderful historical personality. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for joining us
Thanks a lot.
today, and we hope to see you in every of our events. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.